church family. Glad to be with you here. I've got a brief message to share with you about the honor and shame culture that Jesus lived within when he walked on the earth and how that might apply to us here today. Have you ever been in a conversation where you can tell that the words that are being spoken are not truly representing what is going on underneath the surface? So there's more happening in the heart level or in the underlying pieces of the conversation. More times than I care to admit, there's situations in my life where my wife might be talking to me and I begin to become distracted by something else, whatever it might be, and she'll register that, and in her patience, she will simply pause and wait for me to come back around. And I am clever enough, if you will, whenever I register that this is happening, to repeat back to her the last 5 words that she said, as if that's going to bail me out of having not been listening up until that point. I think of the experience or interactions that Jesus had with the Pharisees and Sadducees in the public setting. And the reason those took place in a public setting, because in that culture, when you asked somebody, a teacher or a preacher or a speaker, if you asked a question in that setting, what you were doing was you were actually challenging them on whatever teaching you were questioning them about. They didn't necessarily want an answer to their questions. They were seeking to diminish whoever was speaking's honor and to raise theirs. And so they would attempt to do that with Jesus. But what they didn't know is that Jesus is a master of the honor game. And so I think of a time with the Sadducees where they would describe a story of there was a man and a woman who had married, and the man passes away, but he's got 6 younger brothers. And so the next brother in age takes this woman as his wife, not as a possession, but as a taking care of this woman in that culture. And they go down the line, and each of the brothers end up passing away, and this woman is left with no husband. And they ask the question of, if the resurrection is true, whose wife is this woman? And Jesus says, you don't even know the scriptures. Why are you quoting them to me? And their attempt to increase their honor resulted in a diminishing of their honor. As we look at Luke chapter 4, and Jesus is returning from his time in the wilderness, and he returns to his hometown as he's beginning his ministry. And he goes to the synagogue to worship, and he takes the scroll of Isaiah, and he reads a significant passage to the people of the time. And it reads, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And he reads this because I think it's a significant passage for these people. It's a passage of hope. It's a passage of when God does come to deliver them, good news and freedom will follow. And so the people start getting excited about maybe that this Jesus guy, as he's speaking here, maybe he's going to start fulfilling some of these things. And they even go to the point of saying, isn't this Joseph's son? We know this guy. We know who he is. We know his heritage. We know his past. Is he possibly going to be delivering us some good news? And he ends up then describing when Elijah had come to the people and he proclaimed God's message. He prophesied and they didn't respond. And so God sent Elijah elsewhere. The same happens with Elisha. He's sent to the people. They don't respond. And he is sent elsewhere. Jesus is saying that the same thing's going to happen here. That he is coming to the people and they're not responding, so he's going to be sent elsewhere. And so the people become irate at this and they go to throw him off a cliff, but he's able to walk away. And I don't know how that happens, but I understand and believe that it did. And so before they get to that point of casting him off the cliff, as they're asking the question of, is this Joseph's son? There's a moment where there's a rearing of the head, if you will, of the possibility of honor and or shame to be cast upon Jesus and his family. It was rearing up because of their excitement of the possibility that he was bringing them good news of what was to come. And all of a sudden, for them, it became terrible news. And so they, in that culture, as a community, rained down shame upon Jesus and his family. As I think about how that might apply today, I think of, is there a way to live our lives that God designed that might be better than what we have in mind? Did God have words to put into how we might live? Is there a better way? And as we look at pursuing Jesus, does my pursuit of Jesus have the intent of becoming a better version of me? Or is my pursuit of Jesus going to make me look more like Jesus? So I think of, for example, this past week I was coming back to the church, and there was a father and son who were putting up some shots here at the new basketball hoop we have in the parking lot. And I went over to say hello, and they were taking shots, and the son, he would stand real close to the basket, and then he would have to put up 2 shots in a row that went in. And then he could take a step back, and then he had to take a moment, get his form right, and he had to put 2 in again to be able to take another step back. And each time the father would make critiques of the son's form, and he would even make him stop in the middle of his shot and say, no, you need to do it this way. Not because I want to shame you, not because I want to bash you, but because I want your form to be so good that you're ready to approach any game, any setting, to be able to put up that last shot at the end of a game, for it to have a higher possibility of going in the hoop. And isn't that just like the Father? Isn't that just like God, to be loving in such a way that He's not coming in with condemnation? He's not coming in and saying, you're terrible, do it this way. He's saying, hey, let's work on this. Hey, let's figure this out. No, don't do it that way. Do it this way. I've got a way that is best. I've got a way that is better. And so as a church family, what I would love for us to do is we think about that, as we apply that to our lives. I want us to be living life in a better way, not to become a better version of ourselves, but become more like Jesus. And what that will do will result in an even better version of me, because I'm seeking Him. And so as we are pursuing Jesus, I would love to just see that honor and that love, that joy, that faith are overflowing within us and spilling into our community, spilling into our homes, spilling into our school system. Can be making an impact because we're seeking Jesus. There's a better way to live, and that allows us to then make a difference. Not because we're making ourselves better, but because we're allowing Him to make us better. Love you, church family. See you soon.